It doesn't seem that way. It seems very real. But we have to realize that our organs of perception, our sight and sound and taste and all of that, dictate what we perceive of reality. And it's interesting to think of all of human history as a great striving push for knowledge, for knowing more, for expanding that concept of reality. And through that striving, we understand many things. We know that radio waves exist, even though we can't see them with our physical eyes. We know that bats navigate through space using sonar, that dolphins communicate through their own kind of language. We've learned all these things. We know that dogs see a spectrum of blue to yellow, and so they have about 10,000 colors that they can perceive. We see 1,000,000 colors with our human eyes. And our spectrum is from blue, green, and red. Well, did you ever think about maybe there's other colors that we don't see, that we have yet to experience? We see 1,000,000, maybe there's 1,000,000,000. It's all a matter of the potential of the mind. Science tells us we use a very small percentage of the potential in our minds. 2%, 10%, what would 75% be like? What would be our awareness? What would our perceptions be? How much do the masters use of that potential? Let's go where they're going. Let's perceive what they perceive. Science, through our thirst for knowledge, we've created science. We've pushed out through the boundaries of our little limitations and explored and studied. I'm always interested in thinking about, you see a beautiful sunset. I remember the first time I sat on the beach alone, meditating on the sun going down, and thought how many millions of years people thought, yeah, the world is flat, stationary, and the sun is moving, goes down. And then you notice when you're sitting on the beach that the horizon line is curved. How long did it take people to realize that it's a ball we're on, a ball flying through space? The sun is out there somewhat stationary, though it's moving too. And we're moving away from that sun and giving the appearance of sunset. Did you ever think of how many things are staring us in the face right now? That we think the world is flat in that kind of way? There's so much more to perceive. And the sun, we look at the beautiful sunset and think, oh, it's so tranquil, silent, and beautiful. But the sun is making the noise of millions of nuclear reactions. It's making deafening roar continuously. But our organ of perception, of hearing, doesn't extend that distance, so we can't perceive it. And we've made telescopes to see vast distances and microscopes to see vast infinities of smallness. We've done all this, but we're still hypnotized into thinking that what we see and hear and smell is the reality. It's just a very small spectrum, a very much greater reality. So what is the truth? The truth, so God tells us in the scripture of the Bhagavad Gita, all things, like the beads of a mala, are strung together on the thread of my consciousness and are sustained by me. So what that means for us is that God brought us into being. God it is who gives us our breath, our spark of life. God it is that sustains us. We need to go back to that source, back to that fountain of life, and become connected with that. Swami Kriyananda is such a poet, and the way he writes about it is, our task is to become conscious of God as the deepest reality beneath the restless waves of our unceasing thoughts, desires, and ego ambitions. The Lord ever calls to us to probe beneath the surface of superficial appearances, always in the midst of life's storms, to find Him, the unchanging Spirit. We get so bored with our lives, we go to the grocery store and we drop off the dry cleaning, and we sit in our offices, sit on a chair for 8 hours. Doesn't that sound like torture? We sit there pushing papers around or playing on the computer 8 hours, and then we go home, we're so exhausted, we sit on the couch. And we watch television, and we get all these commercials about Twinkies and Coca-Cola. Oh, it's such a hypnotizing experience. We get so bored with life. But that's only because we're still at the first step. We have to go beyond. Rise, O my soul, in freedom. That's where we need to go. We've been given the ticket. Meditation, Kriya Yoga. We've been given what we need. We just need to get on the bus. So many times people will say, oh yeah, I tried meditation, I gave that up. I have a lot of restless thoughts. Like, that's the reason? Yes, meditation was made, it was designed by ancient rishis who were one with God. It was designed to help you get past the restless thoughts. Don't give up. Just like Yogananda sitting on his bed. The Himalayan yogis appeared before his sight. Stand in awe continuously with every breath of this vast universe, this vast reality that we hardly know anything about. The physicists tell us that we're moving through what they call a cosmic soup. And through these organs of perception, we all agree, because we all have the same organs of perception, that this is the floor, those are the walls, this is reality, and we get tired of it. Go into, like Yogananda did, what is behind the darkness of closed eyes? What is the true reality? And explore that. It's a science too. You have to experiment. You have to do the work. And you will find that light is behind the darkness of closed eyes. Our task, as Swami tells us here, is to perceive that God, that spark of divinity that is at the heart of our being and to commune with it. That is the meaning of life. That is our purpose. And that's the essence of all religion. So let's make a renewed effort this year to find that light, to perceive it and to commune with it. Oh, one more thing. I sent out Christmas cards to some of the Russian devotees that we met when we've gone there. And many of them sent back Christmas cards in English so that I would be able to understand. But one brave soul, well, a couple, but this was the sweetest one. One brave soul wrote me back in English. And this I find very endearing. Don't misunderstand that I think this is amusing, because on one level it is, but on another level, her English is 1,000 times better than my Russian. She says, "Dear teachers of Kriya Yoga, I thank you for a congratulation on Light Christmas and for the memory of the pupils. Dishe Yogananda," which I don't understand what that means, but I think it means Jai Guru. So expand your vision of what Ananda even is. It's not just this room. It's a great movement of light. And identify with that. Identify with this powerful, loving ray of light that has come into the world for you and me and for millions of people around the world.
Happy New Year, everyone. This reading touched on something that we can, all of us, do in this coming year. And it may seem a little bit beyond the potential that we think of for ourselves. In the Bhagavad Gita, in that beautiful little passage that Nirmala was quoting, she was quoting the latter part of it. I make and unmake the universe. I would suggest that we, all of us, make and unmake our universe, and by which I mean the universe of our consciousness. This chant that we sang before meditation, light the lamp of thy love. In my house, with thine own hands, light the lamp of thy love. And if you think of what is my house, I mean, this may be the house, this temple here may be the house of our awareness of meditation, where we learned meditation, where we come to practice and to tune in on Sunday mornings. But what is our real house? Our real house is not the structure that we live in, that we sleep in at night. It's our consciousness. So in the chant we're saying, come into my house, not even just my body, come into the body of my consciousness and light the lamp of thy love. Light the lamp of my own love for God so that I can express it to everyone. Yogananda would often express in one way or another the need to use the will. And when you hear his voice, you hear that will. You also hear devotion. It's kind of an interesting thing. We tend to think it has to be one or the other, but that will is powerful. That will is divine. And he's saying, I will use my own, but God-given willpower, which is to say that God gave it to us to use. He didn't give it to us to leave on the shelf to get dusty with all the trinkets that we accumulate through life. Get it out and use it. And think in terms of what can I create? What can I create that is a service to this world? How can my consciousness reflect the divine consciousness? That little reading goes on to say, that little passage goes on to say, all things are in this universe are strung together on the thread of my consciousness, like the beads on a necklace. We are one of those beads. Our consciousness is one of those beads. And we are sustained by that thread. We have to grab the thing. You know, if we wander off, if our consciousness wanders away from it, we lose that connection. And we see that in this world. And this age is no different from any other age in that sense. Yes, people wander off. People get tangled up in the world. You know, people, as Nirmala was saying, people watch too much television. We have made it a point not to own a television, which does not mean that we're not caught up in things, because you can get a lot of what's on television on the internet also and get tangled up. You know, have you ever noticed how you get, if you're watching a typical program, I will watch sports occasionally, you go 5 minutes, maybe you go 5 minutes, and then there's an interruption. And then there's another interruption. And the whole thing is interruptions. It's just like a continuous interruption. And your mind gets sort of compartmentalized into these, oh my God, there's that commercial again. Oh, it's just, and it's annoyingly memorable. Think of, you go out in nature, it doesn't interrupt you. Okay, maybe if you go out in a lightning storm, okay, maybe it will interrupt you a little bit with a burst of lightning or something. But generally speaking, you know, we do research from time to time on the advances in medical science, and Nirmala was referring to it a little bit with, you know, what spectrum does a dog see, and what spectrum do we see, and what else is out there that we don't see that, you know, we can detect scientifically in one way or another. And of course, it's a vast universe. It's an amazingly enormous universe. Nirmala was talking about how we think of the sun as stationary, because relative to our solar system, we just see the thing sitting there, and we see these planets revolving around it, kind of more or less on a plate, you know, more or less on one plane. So, you know, we draw it, you know, and we teach it in school in this way. Well, I saw a visualization or a demonstration of more what's actually happening, because the sun itself, of course, is moving too. It's rotating around or revolving around a dual that's far away. It's, you know, we're moving relative to our own galaxy as well. So if you actually see it in 3 dimensions, what's happening is the sun is moving forward and the planets are revolving around in this amazing spiral motion. If you, I hesitate to suggest it, but if you go to YouTube and Google the movement of the solar system, you'll actually see an amazing video of this spiral motion. And it's gorgeous. It's incredibly beautiful. We don't necessarily realize how beautiful this universe is. We have to go out and experience it. We have to tune into it, but we also have to tune into it on the inside. And that's the place that meditation has. And that is how, that's the how part. How do we make and unmake the universe of our consciousness, of our life, of the life that we all share here on this planet? We do it by tuning into the Word. And the Word is not just a scripture that's written down on paper. The Word is a scripture that lives inside of us. We are, all of us, a walking scripture, but we have to be aware of it. We have to tune into it. That scripture doesn't scream at us. It doesn't shout at us. It won't forcibly take over our consciousness, but it will whisper. It will say something that we need to hear when we need to hear it. Will we listen? That's the question. We have to be willing to listen. That's the part. When the Bible describes, or the Christian tradition describes, a still small voice, being the voice of God's guidance inside of us, again, it doesn't overwhelm us. We have to listen. And so Yogananda is saying, use your will. Yes, like the chant, what is this life flowing through my veins? Can it be other than divine? We are, all of us, instruments for the divine. We may think when we look in the mirror in the morning, who, me? Instrument for the divine? I don't know. I've got a few more wrinkles than I had a year ago. Got a few fewer hairs on my head. Who? How? Well, as soon as we share from the heart, in the purification ceremony that we do, we say the words, I seek purification by the grace of God. And the response is, open your heart to me. Now, the opening of the heart is not so easy. That's where the rubber meets the road, so to speak. That's the point at which there is genuine and consequential effort involved on our part. We have to be willing to open our hearts. If you think of all the stories and ballads down through the ages, all the movies, all the plays, all the dramas of human life, what do you have at the core of it all? Yes, of course, you have conquest and victory and defeat and so on, but you also have the drama of love. And what happens inevitably? The young man puts his heart out there. Will he be accepted or won't he? He doesn't know. It's a risk. He has to take the chance. The young girl, she's wondering, will anybody ask her to the dance or whatever it may be? Again, there's a risk involved. And unless and until we're willing to take that risk, God won't force us to. We have to get to the place where we feel ready, confident and ready. But we miss a higher potential of life if we don't. All of life is saying, grow, grow. What gets a child up in the morning? What gets us up in the new year? We want to experience something new and something more than what we've ever done before. And so I also would add my little hope and dream to what Nirmala was suggesting. In this new year, let us challenge ourselves to go beyond what we've ever done before. And I don't mean just in terms of quantity. Yes, the quantity part can be good. It's good to challenge ourselves to do more. But the more part, if it's only quantitative and not qualitative, it doesn't satisfy us. We have to find that place in ourselves that is deeply, deeply satisfied, that peace. I read something very interesting recently about how, as an organ, we know that the brain is obviously very important to our state of consciousness and the health of the brain, and the fact that it's plastic. I don't mean that it's made out of plastic, but I mean that it's malleable. The brain will adjust, and science has shown that meditation helps us to re-groove or recreate, and just as we're saying about recreating the universe, recreate our consciousness. But there's another organ, and that organ is the heart. The heart has a magnetic field, literally, that can be detected scientifically. And if that magnetic field is cohesive, the heart is healthy and we are happy. It's a fascinating thought because we don't necessarily think of the heart's involvement in our state of consciousness. And part of what we have to do in order to have a healthy heart is we have to be in an environment that is not stressful. And we come up with all sorts of creative reasons for why people should meditate, why we all should meditate, because it makes a huge difference in the world. It obviously makes a huge difference to us. But this is one of the reasons. When you meditate, you are in a deeply, deeply nurturing, peaceful, unstressful environment. And it's affecting your heart in an incredibly positive way. So take the time in this year. All of us get 24 hours a day. There's nobody in this world who doesn't get 24 hours in one day. What will we do with it? Use it in this coming year. Use it to have the quality. And okay, it's fine to increase the quantity of meditation as a way to achieve that quality also. But let's aim for the quality part first. The quantity part can come later as we feel the inspiration for it. But let us all collectively take the challenge that we give out in the purification ceremony, that the masters give us all. Open your heart to me, and I will enter and take charge of your life. I will take charge of your year. I will take charge of your retirement. I will take charge of whatever it may be that we're concerned about. Let us, all of us, open our hearts to that influx of God's grace, because it's waiting for all of us, and we just have to embrace it. And that's something that we can do, and by God's grace, let us all do it in this coming year. Namaste.